What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Too Cool Reviews, and I got to see a very early screening of It Chapter 2, and now I finally get a chance to sit down and let you guys know what I thought about it. So just a heads up, this will be a spoiler-free video. I'll do a spoiler video once the movie actually releases this weekend and I've had a chance to see it again. But for now, I won't go into depth or detail about any of the specifics about the movie, so you definitely don't have to worry about anything being spoiled for you going into the movie. So just a heads up, you don't have to click away, you don't have to skip through the video or anything. You're safe. Andy Muschietti returns as director, and Bill Skarsgard reprises his role as Pennywise, and this time they're joined by James McAvoy, Jessica Chastain, and Bill Hader. It Chapter 2 is the follow-up to the 2017 remake, and it takes place 27 years after the events of the first film. The losers, who are all adults now, have to return to Derry to once again confront Pennywise, who has been waiting their return for 27 years and has been plotting his revenge the whole time. As always, I'll be letting you guys know what I thought was good, what was bad, and what I thought of the film overall. Now, one of the things you're going to hear the most going into this movie is how Bill Hader kills it as Richie, and how he's arguably one of the best things about the whole movie, and that's 100% true. From his comedic scenes to his surprisingly good emotional scenes, he 100% steals the show in this one, and while the cast overall does an amazing job, from the bottom to the top, but he definitely stands out overall because I just feel like he had some of the best material to work with, and he had a lot of the most memorable scenes, whether they were comedic or whether they were more, emotional or dramatic. And I was definitely surprised with the performance he delivered here, and I definitely agree with all the praise that he's getting and receiving from his role here. Another person who also kills it is Bill Skarsgard as Pennywise. Ultimately, he's pretty much just picking up where he left off in the last movie, and he really kind of builds upon that performance here, and he's also given a few more scenes where he's not over the top, but he's more menacing. I'm not a fan of the digital effects that they use for some of his scares. I've made that known in my other reviews, but he manages to continue to outshine that, and it really never really holds back his performance or brings down his overall performance. Another big surprise for me in the movie was Jay Ryan as Ben. I came away very impressed with what he was able to do with what he had to work with. He's one of the more quiet characters in the movie, but he does a lot of his acting with just his facial expressions and his reactions. He does a great job just conveying different emotions purely through facial expressions, and I can't give him enough praise for that. And I feel like he really does a great job of just embodying everything that Ben as a character is supposed to be. We also get a good amount of scares and different action scenes and scare scenes in this movie, and I feel like that really helped with the pacing overall because they're well timed and well placed throughout the film to really kind of ease the runtime, so you don't really feel like you're sitting there for 2 hours. While I'm not a fan of the effects that they use primarily on Pennywise for some of his scares and digital effects, a lot of the other effects that go into the movie are very well done and very effective, and given the reaction of the audience, I feel like a lot of people are gonna really have a lot of fun with what they do here, where here I really feel like they were swinging for the fences as far as genuinely trying to scare audiences, and I honestly feel like they succeed with that. The last thing that I would add in as far as the good would ultimately be how the film ends. Not so much the climax, we'll get to that in a few, but mainly how the film wraps up and how they ultimately manage to wrap up both part 1 and part 2. And with the addition of the extra scenes and flashbacks that you get throughout the movie, they managed to add a lot of depth to characters who don't really get a lot of screen time or maybe weren't as fleshed out as other characters in the book. So I definitely feel like they took advantage of their creative freedom with this one, and the way they tell the story, they actually give themselves a lot of room to kind of go their own way with the narrative, and I feel like they make the most of that for most parts. There were a few disappointments for me personally here and there, but I'll touch on those in a moment as well. But ultimately, I feel like the film does an amazing job of just telling a story that that doesn't lose you or confuse you along the way, and ultimately leaves you in a place where you feel like you really got a complete story. So as always, with the good you got to take the bad. So let's talk about what was not so great about the film. Now, like I said, they do give themselves the creative freedom to go in their own direction with a lot of different things and a lot of characters, and for the most part, they stay true to the heart of the story and the core narrative, but they do make some changes, and some characters are completely different from what they were in the novel, and some characters they have their roles reduced dramatically. So you'll find out once you actually go and see the movie. But I would say my biggest disappointment with the movie was the handling of Mike's character. I'm a big fan of Mike. He's one of my favorite characters from both the novel and the miniseries, and I was a bit disappointed with how they handled him in Chapter 1, but I was interested to see how they handled that going into Chapter 2. And while it works for the narrative, and I get that they chose to go a different route with his character, I just, as a fan of his character, of what I expect his character to be, I was a bit disappointed to see him change so drastically and not so much for the better, in my opinion. And another character that I felt like kind of suffered a bit, was Bill's character. Here, you just don't get the sense that he's, the leader of the group as prominently as you do in other iterations. And, I feel like James McAvoy was a bit underutilized here, where, he still does a great job. I don't think he's capable of giving a bad performance at this point after seeing him do, great in everything I've seen him in. So it's not that he doesn't do a good job. It's just kind of how I feel like the character was dialed back a little bit, to not be as prominent as he usually is, or as he's supposed to be, or as he was written. And, like I said, that's more so because, Richie's character was pushed to the forefront in different aspects. And, they really just try to do a balance of, just showing everybody. I guess they didn't want to have anyone, be out in front more than the rest, I guess. I don't know. So it could just be my takeaway. So, again, take both of those things with a grain of salt. But, as a fan of Mike, I was a bit disappointed with how his character was handled. And, I just kind of noticed that Bill's character was kind of, I felt like he took a few steps back as far as being, pushed to the forefront. Another thing that was a bit disappointing about the film, aside from, them continuing to use those effects for Pennywise that I dislike, while we do get a decent amount of kills in the movie, at times I feel like there wasn't enough, creativity and flexibility that went into how they actually went about those kills. With, Pennywise, unique ability as an entity to just kind of take the form of your worst fears and, kind of take any shape that he so chooses. I just wish they would have did a little more with, that kind of stuff, and not so much, primarily having him as the clown for most of the runtime, because that's his favorite form by far, but that's not his only form. And I just feel like between part 1 and part 2, they could have went a little further with, just the creativity that goes into, how he goes about killing different people. The only other thing that I wanted to add in was, just the climax of the film. I don't feel like it's going to divide audiences or anything, or it's going to be like super controversial or anything. If you saw the miniseries, you know how bad that was and how that ended. As far as the whole special effects with the spider and everything, and how that climax was ended. So trust me, it's nowhere near as bad as that. They go in a different direction, and some of the artistic choices that they made, I'm not quite sure I was a fan of it, and definitely I wasn't expecting that going in, so I think you'll be as surprised as I was. A lot of the people in the audience that I was viewing the film with were surprised, but I'm not necessarily sure they were surprised in as good of a way as the film may have hoped. Guys, overall, I really think they do about as good a job as you can, with the story that they're trying to tell. They make it cohesive. They make it, they tell it in a way that it doesn't just, like I said, you don't feel the 2-hour runtime just beating down on you. So I feel like they really do an amazing job with what they set out to do here. And they also, as I said, managed to flesh out characters who didn't have as much depth in, other iterations. So they definitely capitalize on a lot of, areas of opportunity in these movies. And I definitely feel like you come away feeling like you watched the second half of a complete series. And again, I definitely got to give praise for how they managed to wrap up the series overall. And I definitely think audiences are really going to have a lot of fun between the scares, how the film how the film opens in general, and, just how things managed to wrap up overall. I definitely enjoyed it. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it again this weekend. And I'm going to give It Chapter 2 an 8 out of 10. So like I said, I'll have my spoiler video for you guys this weekend so we can discuss, everything down in the comments once you guys had a chance to actually see it. I want to know what you guys are expecting to see going in. Let me know your predictions down in the comments. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.